Hello, I'm Homer Ledford, what's left of me. I'm from Winchester, Kentucky, originally from Tennessee. And they asked me up here to do a little entertainment and to show you several things. And I brought some of my wires, my dulcimers, guitars, etc. And to tell you something about it and throw in a little bit of Tennessee corn. So I'm going to have a lot of fun. I hope you do too.
Ledford made his first musical instrument, a fiddle, around 1939 when he was 14 years old. He carved this fiddle out of wood chopped from trees on his father's farm in the remote mountain community of Alpine, Tennessee. Ledford copied his first instrument from a picture he saw of a fiddle in a Sears Roebuck catalog, using mostly a handsaw, a pocket knife, and a chisel. At the time, he couldn't afford to order any fiddles shown in the catalog. Ledford discovered, as other folk instrument makers had before him, that a fiddle was a complex and time-consuming instrument to make with simple hand tools. Ledford now makes mostly dulcimers, which he sells and which are valued in many parts of the world. As far as we know, the first dulcimers made were made in the Appalachian Mountains, partly because they were an instrument that the settlers there could fashion with available tools.
We don't know exactly where the instrument started. We feel that the Appalachian dulcimer developed in the mountains. Someone or some group remembered seeing some of the old instruments like the Swedish hummels and langlicks, and there's one in Iceland even, Gene Ritchie found. They tend to remember those designs and use them. The tools were very, very, very simple. A handsaw and a draw knife to shoe the mules with, just an old hand plane of wooden block with a blade in it, and a splitting axe or a broad axe. And with those simple tools, they had to do what they had to do with.
Ledford began making musical instruments for sale only after he began making dulcimers, copying his first dulcimer from some he saw at the John Campbell Folk School in North Carolina.
In 1946, I attended the John Campbell Folk School in Brasstown, North Carolina, and I seen the dulcimers on the wall. I thought they were very strange. I had seen pictures of them. And so I learned something about the construction of them, and it wasn't long after that an order came from the Southern Highland shop in New York. They asked me if I would like to work on, at the school they asked me if I'd like to work on them. And they would pay $20 a piece. I thought that was interesting too. I wasn't making any money at all, so I jumped at the chance. I went ahead and made them. And that started me dulcimer making. When I started making them, there was only Jethro Amberg. He was really making anything for sale. That was a long time ago, of course.
At first, Ledford made instruments only part-time. In 1956, he made them while also teaching.
In 1962, I just couldn't seem to make enough money to support the family very well, teaching here in the county at least. And I had been turning a lot of orders down for dulcimers and various other things, you know, and so I decided that I would try going into this woodworking and dulcimer making and all that full time. But I was afraid I would run out of work, so I started making banjos and more guitars and ukuleles even. and repairing and teaching banjo and guitar lessons along with the dulcimer making. But the dulcimer making became so strong that I'd now hardly ever make anything but a dulcimer.
Homer Ledford, according to one young dulcimer maker, is in the middle of the spectrum of folk instrument makers. At one end of the spectrum are the earliest kind of instrument makers from the mountains, such as Jethro Ambergy of Hindman, Kentucky. At the far end of the spectrum are a new generation of craftsmen who use modern technology and also modify and redesign the dulcimer, so much so that it's evolving into a different instrument. Ledford is in the middle of the spectrum because he uses table saws, joiners, and so on to speed up the process. But he still controls the groove by hand, and he adheres mostly to the early designs, with comparatively few modifications.
I think it kind of represents something of antiquity. Old. I mean, we have nothing modern, the musical instrument certainly, that looks like this. But to me, it represents going so far back and pulling out things from the past and then kind of capturing, keeping some of our past with us and not letting it get destroyed. I think some would be willing to do that. They redesign and redesign and redesign and change completely, and then we've lost some of the traditions, you know, whether it's redesigning or doing something different for the sake of being different. I've always liked the instrument because it is simple. It has a sweet sound to me. And of course, every time I finish one, I get to play it.
On occasion, Ledford teaches his craft to others, as at the John Campbell Folk School mentioned earlier, where he first learned to make dulcimers himself.
I do a little woodworking from time to time. I have a little shop at home, and so when we had found out that Homer Ledford was going to be here to teach it, we decided the only thing to do was for me to come up and learn how to make one. Whether I'll be able to play it when I get through or not, I don't know.
I had heard Homer Ledford play at the Craftsman Fair in Asheville last year, and I thought it would be a really great experience to get to know Homer and work with him.
You've got those in nasty, those sanded slick as a monkey's eyeball again. That's becoming an old one. Okay, think of something else.
So you round it, take off the this way,
yeah? Yeah, first of all, I cut them just evenly surface, you know,
All right.
and on both sides, and then come back and round it. Being kind of careful not to let the file, you don't want the file to butt up against one of those frets. It tends to want to knock it loose at the end, you know.
Right.
That's a little easier said than done, though, because I always tend to do it.
Yeah. This would be, oh, I see.
Now I'm kind of on that, just that alone. I'm kind of using my first finger to feel that surface so that file won't go over too far.
Uh-huh.
Now, Adrian Cutter's finger used to be on one of these things.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah. They're sharp.
After you file just a little bit more off of each one of them, you can come back and, you know, do better. File all three at one time.
I see.
Yeah.
We feel that Homer Ledford is one of those authentic personalities that you meet. Absolutely a man that is not cluttered with a whole lot of civilization's tinsel at all. He's genuine.
It's a very simple instrument, and you know the sound of it is simple, and that's an advantage, I think.
And it's an absolutely fascinating instrument.
It's rather like a piano in that you can really see the music theory laid out right in front of you. You can see certain things on a piano, and then you apparently see other things on a dulcimer just because of the way the fingerboard is and the way that it works.
You can see the structure of the music since it's a diatonic instrument. You can see how you transpose and how the modes fit together. So I've learned a lot about music from playing with it.
We were attracted to the shape.
The shape of the dulcimer, it's a beautiful thing.
And to the fact that the dulcimer was played in this Appalachian area by the early settlers who came here.
I can remember my grandmother singing the old songs. I've been telling people that I'm rediscovering my ethnic heritage. When I grew up in these hills, we were sort of ashamed of being hillbillies, and now we're getting to the point where we're proud of it.
Anything that is related to the folk, the genuine, not exploitative, not anything manipulative, or not anything schmaltzy, you know, but real. We love to run onto. We just love to. It seems to me that kind of thing is really the most moving and the most central. The same folk element, it cuts right through any of our plastic business, you know, and right to the heart. The dulcimer does that to me.
The tone of the dulcimer,
It has a sweet, poignant, pathetic tone.
lends itself to the playing of one person and the ballads that they used to sing.
Ledford must take off time from making dulcimers to sell his wares. This he and other craftsmen do, in part, at artists' and craftsmen's fairs, such as the ones at Berea, Kentucky.
The market I have, I go to 3 fairs a year, 2 at Berea and 1 Cincinnati. Those are major things. I go to other functions where also I can sell if I want. Well, the fairs are good because they see you, you know, talk to you, and that seems to help. Although I told my wife if she stayed with it and me gone, I'd probably do better. They don't like to look at me. You know, to put on a show, you don't have to be good. I found out you just have to have novel things, you know, entertain. It's just entertaining, that's all. People entertain in different ways. Artistry is great. If you don't have the artistry, then you got to do something else. Maybe something different. And that's where the saw and the dowel and the dulcimer stuff comes in. corny. Corn it up a little bit, you know. As long as they know it's corny, it's all right. But if I'm ignorant in the fact I don't know I'm corny, and it's not supposed to be, well, that's a different story.
I think you do a marvelous job of entertaining with a subtle way of slipping in your trade, too.
That's not intentional now. None of that's intentional. I just enjoy it, that's all.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
I don't know why you
even stop playing it, there's nothing wrong with it. But it's the funniest thing that, well, people have told me that, they give their ITs to be able to do what I'm doing. And yet, I didn't plan any of it, you know, it just happened. There are the pressures. There's no perfect job. But I can't look at the overall thing as a job at all. As a matter of fact, in the mornings when I come down here to work, I really look forward to working, and then sometime about 10 o'clock, somebody will come down through there and bounce in the shop, see? And I'll have to entertain them. And it's just like that, boy, they're really stealing my time for my enjoyment from me, see? And I never come in here and think about how much money I'm going to make that day. It never enters my mind. Sometimes my wife kind of kidded me a little bit, you know, she says, well, money isn't everything. She don't always believe that, but she just realizes I don't come in here necessarily to make money. It has to be done, but I mean, I come in here and enjoy working. When I was small, we kind of, in the mountains, felt put down a little. We didn't have very much, and you know how you might feel. You're always trying to find something to make you outstanding. So I would do like some of the others around there. We would maybe create something that would look big in the eyes of our neighbors. You might say make it in their eyes. But it's really hard when you're growing up like that. You don't have any information from any place, not even newspapers. It was very hard for us to do anything. My uncles tried to make a fiddle out of matchsticks, and another one tried to make a fiddle out of thorns. Well, this was outstanding. This is something that was different, you know, something that somebody would not do. And then I started making some musical instruments from whatever that I could find to make it out of. So we did whatever we could to come out of it, so to speak. A well-made dulcimer, to me, represents the dignity and even the spirit of the people in the mountains where I came from. I just have to be making them.